There we go. All right, here's our learning target for today. Today, I will apply the quotation mark rules correctly to a variety of sentences, and I will know I am successful when I have achieved a mastery level in No Red Ink. All right, on your screen, go ahead and click Next, and you'll see our Do Now for today. All right, I'm going to set the timer for 5 minutes. Go ahead at the top of your screen where you have the blue button. Now, I will warn you, I'm going to go over this with you just so that you can make corrections, but I do want to look over your shoulder while you're working just to see your progress, okay? So click on the blue Submit Assignment button, and it will open the text box below. Copy and paste number 1 and number 2 into the text box. While the timer is running, you are going to edit these 2 sentences. Try that again. You will edit these 2 sentences by adding capital letters, quotation marks, commas, and end punctuation. Each of these sentences need all of those things added. This is a show what you know. It's not a quiz. It's not a test. It's, do you know how to use quotation marks? Can you remember your capitalization rules? And can you add the correct punctuation? All right. I'm going to put 5 minutes up on the timer. Oh, not 10. I'll put 5 minutes up on the timer, and you can begin. All right, so I capitalized Matt. Matt said, and then I highlighted, "I will beat you in Monopoly." All right, that's his quote. Now I have to deal with this quote a little bit differently than I would any other type of sentence. I could start out by putting quotation marks around it, since we know it's a quote and we know you put quotation marks around quotes. The next thing I can do is I can capitalize I for 2 reasons. One, it's a proper pronoun and we always capitalize I. The second thing, the second reason is it's the first word in a direct quote. Now, hear this part. A direct quote that's a complete sentence will always start with a capital letter, always, like regardless. "I will beat you in Monopoly" is a complete sentence. It's its own sentence. It's just within another sentence, a larger one. At the end, after Monopoly, I have to put a period because I always use end punctuation. Okay, so hopefully right now you're good. Yes, feel free to do the highlighting. That's totally fine. I'm just doing it to illustrate, but there's no points off. And if it's helpful to you, then please do it. Okay, now there's one other aspect, one other thing. When I have what's called a dialogue quote, I have to separate it from the other words, the Matt said part. I have to separate it using a comma. Now I'm going to underline Matt said because it's what we refer to as explanatory words. All right, that's number 1. It's all correct. I started out by capitalizing Matt. I add a comma after. Oh, say it again.
Monopoly, isn't it like a name, like a brand?
Oh, hey, thanks. You know what? I totally forgot. Yeah, Monopoly is actually the name of the game. Yes, it should be capitalized. That totally slipped my mind. Well done. Well done indeed. Okay, so Matt, capitalize, said, comma. Now we call this word said a dialogue word. Dialogue words are anything like, said or mentioned, exclaimed, shouted, basically how they said it. Indicated, that's another one. Whispered, all different. If you could think of a way to communicate a sentence, you put it in your with your quote, it's part of the explanatory words. It's a dialogue word. I separate it with my comma, open quote, then a capital letter, always a capital letter, at the beginning of a dialogue quote. And then I did capitalize Monopoly. Thank you, Russell. A period at the end, and then the close quote. So a couple of things to note. The comma will always come before the quote. The period will always come before the end quote. Okay, so the comma will always come before the open quote, and the period will always come before or inside of the quote. Let's look at the second one. It's the same exact type of sentence, but they just did a little tricky thing with us. So first of all, let me highlight the quote for us. It says, Lucy asked with a smile, who else thought that movie was awesome? Now, I'm going to consider, is this a complete sentence? Yes, it is. Who else thought that movie was awesome? Yep, it can stand on its own. It's a question, so I need to have an end punctuation that is a question. The next thing I need to do is let's separate it out with our quotation marks, putting around the quote. You see how I'm building each part? Now I have to decide, oh, and I need to capitalize who, because it's the first word in a dialogue quote. All right, so now one more time, going back and looking at my dialogue quote, I have open quote, capital letter for who else thought that movie was awesome. I have my end punctuation on the inside, just like my period up here was on the inside. And then I have my close quote. Now I'm pretty much all finished with that. Now I have to address the explanatory words that are at the beginning. As most of you, if not all of you, you capitalized Lucy. The only thing I'm missing is my comma. Now I have to figure out exactly where to put the comma. Lucy asked, ooh, there's my dialogue word, with a smile. Now, if I put my comma after asked, it ends up making kind of this goofy pause. Lucy asked, with a smile, who else thought that, that was kind of cringy in the way that I said it. It doesn't flow correctly. We're going to put our comma after smile. Now, what's the check? How do I know that I'm correct? Well, the with a smile kind of tells you how she asked or in what way or paired with what was it paired with. You could replace this. Lucy asked dryly, or Lucy asked excitedly. Lucy exclaimed obnoxiously, this was the greatest movie of all time, something like that. So the comma, if you're trying to make it easy on yourself, the comma will always come directly before the quotation mark in a dialogue quote. So I do want to show you a quick variation, and I'm seeing that many of you are changing it, and that's awesome. That's exactly what I want you to do. Let me show you a quick variation. Let's take sentence number 1, and you could do this if you want to, or if paying attention and just following along is helpful to you, that's fine as well. All right. So in this sentence, I'm going to just pull off pieces, and I'm going to rearrange them. So I'm going to put this at the end. Now, notice, if you will, that I didn't change anything as far as words go. All right, let me just got to grab this. I'll zoom back in. All I did was copy and paste Matt said at the end. Now, a couple things that we do when we evaluate, we know that obviously at the end of a sentence, we can't have a comma, right? We can't end a sentence in a comma. We have to end it in a period or other punctuation. In this case, it is a period. So I'm going to change the comma to a period. Now, look at what we've written. I will beat you in Monopoly, Matt said. If I leave this period here, it gets a little clunky, and there's a very odd break, a very odd pause. When you get to a period, you usually stop talking, take a breath, and then read the next sentence, or you give a pregnant pause, which is a little bit longer pause. Once again, let me read it to you with the period there. I will beat you in Monopoly. Matt said, it doesn't sound right. The inflection is wrong. Because of that, I have to delete the period and I have to add a comma. I have to just change it into a comma. Now I have my one sentence. It looks right. It is right. I will beat you in Monopoly, Matt said. It makes it easier to read. So folks, it doesn't matter if the explanatory words, the Matt said, the dialogue words come before or after, I'm still going to separate it with a comma. And do you remember what I said? Oh, hang on one. I'll take your question
Okay.
in a second. Remember what I said up here? That the comma always comes before the quotation mark? It's true. See down here? The comma comes before the quotation mark. Go ahead, Russell.
Can't you also do said Matt as well? Like I will be Monopoly said Matt.
Sure, sure. Yeah, we could take this whole thing. We could copy it and we could make another line. Sure. You could change this around and you could say said Matt. And there's no change to the punctuation. It would be the same. You could even, well, this is a little bit further down the road. You could even put you could put it in the middle too. And if you follow the rules that I just shared with you, I didn't share this with the other class, but I will. I'll share it with you. If you follow the other rules, these same rules, it'll be exactly the same. This is a weird place to break, but we could put it in here. If we put our explanatory words in the middle of the sentence, maybe we're doing that for dramatic effect. Oops. I will beat you in, comma, close quote. Matt said, we need a comma here, and then another open quote. Monopoly. I will beat you in, Matt said, Monopoly. That's kind of a more emphatic way of doing it and a weird place to break. But look, it's the same thing. Comma before the quote, and then here again, comma before the quote, and the period just goes at the end. So you got to see something a little bit more advanced. Now, because I got to explain this part right here, about a dialogue quote, I don't actually have to take you through the PowerPoint. So I'm going to give you a copy of the link right now in the chat. And I want you to head over to Clever. All right. I think most of you, you actually may have Clever already open. That's fine. Oh, go ahead and yes, you may submit this. Go ahead and submit your assignment. Head over to Clever now. And we're going to be working with no red ink for just a few minutes. All right. Once you're in Clever, you've logged in, click on no red ink. Now, most of you, I think more than half of you, have already logged into no red ink. Because you've already been in it, you've already done that little beginning part where you get to pick the things that you're interested in. If you happen to get that option, just choose the things that are interesting to you, the video games or the music or the movie or the TV show that best, appeals to you. Choose something that you're familiar with and something that you like. Follow those on-screen directions. And then once you're in no red ink, you should see an assignment called quotations. Now, instead of clicking on practice, if you would please click on lesson. Or if you already clicked on practice, just come back to my screen and I'll click on the lesson for you. All right, so once you're in, you'll be in with our class. You should see a couple of blue circles. You're looking for the one called quotation marks or quotations. It should be the top one. Yep, and then you click the little play button. Good, Aaliyah is there. Let me pause this real quick. All right, go ahead now if you haven't already, and you can click begin. I'm going to share the lesson up on my screen. You're welcome to look at my screen. If you want to look at my screen, please click on practice. Otherwise, you are welcome to follow along with the lesson. Okay, we're going to be looking at two different types of quotes today. We've already looked at something called a dialogue quote. All right, you'll see it here, and notice in the yellow box that there's our examples from earlier today or from our do now that we just finished. All right, take a look at some of the features. The dialogue quote is here in blue. It says, I will beat you in Monopoly. It's a complete sentence. It can stand on its own. It's literally a sentence within a larger sentence. We separate it out using quotation marks. Another feature of a dialogue quote is that we will use a dialogue word. Dialogue words are used because they indicate a conversation or thought. Here's several of them. Here's 9 of them: said, yelled, sang, thought, asked, announced, claimed, wondered, and shouted. But this is not all of them. There are many, many more, as I shared with you earlier. Suggested would be another one, or mentioned, whispered again. So we can look at our examples and we can see that it says, Matt said. There's a dialogue word. I will beat you in Monopoly. The next one, Lucy asked. There's our dialogue word with a smile. Who else thought that movie was awesome? Other features of a dialogue quote are that comma that comes after the dialogue or the explanatory words. It also includes a capital letter that must appear at the beginning of the quote. And then the quote will always end with some form of punctuation before the end quote. Now, those features are just for dialogue quotes. The other or second type of quote is called a flow quote. Take a look at the flow quote. Matt thinks that he is a master at Monopoly. Now, Matt actually said this. He said, hey, I'm a master at Monopoly. But we're not quoting all of what he said, and we're kind of just using it as a piece of information in the sentence rather than quoting his dialogue. We're not saying he said it, but notice that it has the word that in it. If you see the word that, you are looking at a flow quote. Some of the features of a flow quote is that you do not have a comma. So flow has no comma. You're also missing that capital letter that would appear at the beginning of a dialogue quote. Let's look at the second one. Lucy argued that the movie was the most awesome movie of the year. Now, one way to look at this, and now this isn't for everybody. Some people don't like it when I say it this way. So if this does not resonate with you, then please just ignore it. Okay, just memorize the rules. You know, when people use air quotes when they're quoting something that someone says, that's what a flow quote is. That's what they're doing. They're putting quotes around what another person said within the flow of their sentence. So if we said, you know, James really doesn't like vanilla ice cream with sprinkles on top. Okay. Now, if he says, I don't really like vanilla ice cream with sprinkles on top, or in this case, James described the dessert as the most delicious thing he ever ate. You would put quotation marks around most delicious thing you ever ate. It's not a complete sentence on its own. It can't stand by itself. It has to have quotation marks around it because it's what he said, but it is within the flow of another sentence, not a direct dialogue quote. All right, now, if you have that open, click the X and go back into practice. Now, this is where my philosophy of no red ink comes in. You are totally allowed, you are completely allowed to work ahead. No one will ever hold you back. Mr. MITZEL will not hold you back when it comes time to work. So you are welcome to, if you're watching this on the video, you are welcome to pause the video and work if you don't want to hear me talking, or I would like to invite you to do some of these together with me. All right. So in the first section, let me leave this and open a brand new one so that my questions are the same as yours. All right. In this first section, what we're doing is we're looking to determine, is the bolded word a dialogue word or a flow quote word? Now I'm going to think back and just remember that dialogue words are words that are similar to said or mentioned, whispered, exclaimed, or shouted. a chiron. That's fine. Flow quote words are words like that, simply the word that. I'm also going to look at this to see, is there a comma before the quote? And then finally, I'm going to look to see if the first word in the quote is capitalized. If the answer to those questions are no, there is no comma, no, there is no capital letter, then I definitely have a flow quote. Here I have that, which is a flow quote word. I'm missing a comma. I have a lowercase t. I'm going to pick flow quote. And you should do the same. Number 2, after the dance recital, I complained Wolf O'Donnell didn't have enough solos. I'm going to look at the bolded word. The bolded word is complained. That's kind of like said or mentioned. You know, complaining is talking. It's just negative talking, right? I now look, so that's a dialogue word. I now look here and I see a comma, and I notice that this is a capital letter. And I do know that, yes, that is his name, and it would be, definitely would be capitalized anyway. But regardless, this would need to be capitalized if I had a comma and a dialogue word. So I'm going to click dialogue quote. Good, I see that you're getting them right. If for some reason you were still like stuck back on that other screen, you just click the little play button and then choose practice. All right, let's get on to number 3. As he set foot on the tropical island, Yoshi thought, notice a comma and capital letter, although it is the pronoun I can't wait to set up my hammock. Looking at that quotation, it is a complete sentence. It can stand on its own. I can't wait to set up my hammock. Yeah, totally makes sense. I have a dialogue quote word. I have a comma, and I have a complete sentence with a capital letter. This is a dialogue quote. All right, this will be the last one that I'll do together. And if you need help, definitely jump in on the chat and let me know. And I'll come over immediately and give you assistance. After the game, the coach bragged that Falco Lombardi can do no wrong on the field. I have the word that, which is a flow quote word. I am missing a comma, which is a flow quote. We don't have him with flow quotes. And then this word, Falco Lombardi, that's his name. That's why it's capitalized. But I definitely have a flow quote word. So I'm going to choose. Good. Thank you for putting it in the chat. Yep. I think you recognized it before I did, right? It is a flow quote. All right. I got through level 2. I'm on my way to mastery. Right, I'm just going to look over your shoulder for the next couple of minutes. I'll put 10 minutes on our timer. And after you finish this section, when it tells you you've mastered it and it's taking you back to the screen with the big green check mark on it, click next topic. And remember, there are only 2 topics. They're not 15 topics, only 2. You'll have 10 minutes to get through as much as you can. Whoops, wrong button. All right, and if you are watching the video, then certainly pause the video and then come back when you're finished. So, okay, over the next couple of days, between now and the 27th, you're going to write your Unit 4 essay. When you click on the assignment, you'll see that there are 5 steps in this document. The instructions say, this is your Unit 4 Common Assessment essay. Complete each step to write your rough draft. Then revise your rough draft before your final submission. You may submit as many times as you would like until the final due date, January 27th, 2021. All right, today, we're just going to live up here in step 1, in planning. All right, if you haven't clicked on the button down below, or if it expired, go ahead and refresh the page, click on the button, and you'll be taken over here to our document. You'll notice that it looks a lot different this time. I took off all that extra stuff. You don't have to have all of that. In fact, when you go to write an essay, you probably just need a place to do your brainstorm and a place to draft it. So that's what I provided for you. Go ahead and put your name and today's date. You could put period in. You could put core 2, that's fine, or core 1 if you're in core 1, people on the video. We're going to start in here in the planning and brainstorming. So zoom it in for you. We're going to do some of this together. Tomorrow, you're going to have an opportunity to pair up or to partner up or to get into a small group and work with people that also want to work. So you'll be able to kind of feed off of each other and share your experience with others. So looking back at the assessment, step one planning, the very first thing you need to do is unpack the prompt. What does that mean? Well, on the document, write an I statement telling what you're supposed to write about. And then I gave you this little sentence starter right here. I am being asked to explain. So once again, I'm going to get into my document. I'm going to paste in my sentence starter, and now I'm going to read. There we go. Now I'm going to read what my prompt is. It says, civil rights leader Mahatma Gandhi wrote, "Be the change you want to see in this world. What is one way you would like to change the world, and how can you help bring about this change? Use specific details and examples in your response." All right, go ahead and write your own. What are you supposed to be writing about? I'm going to do mine, and hopefully if you need a little help, you can look at my screen. Otherwise, go ahead and just key yours in on your document. All right, just giving folks another minute to get finished. Great work, great job. Okay. You should have something that's similar to me because we're all being asked to write about the same thing. So we would all have the same answer, right? Okay, I'll put this in the chat for you, and you are welcome to copy and paste if you didn't come up with something, or if you were there but you just didn't have a chance to type it out. There it is for you in the chat. I'm supposed to explain one way that I would like to change the world and how I might bring about the change. I have to include details and examples in my essay. Now, once again, how did I come up with that? Well, I looked at my prompts, and it says right here, what's one way you'd like to change the world? How can I help bring about this change? So I'm probably going to identify my change. And then after that, I'm going to list reasons. I'm going to brainstorm reasons. So let's go down here in the box underneath our unpacking the prompt. Put my brainstorm in. Okay, on your paper, I'd like you to include these or add these two little headings here. Okay, so we are going to do like an official brainstorm. You're going to be responsible for coming up with the ideas. This is just, what are some ways that I can change the world around me? That's where we need to start. Once we've come up with a bunch, then you will choose your own, and then you'll do the second part down here. How are you going to do it, right? So like up here, if the one thing I'm going to do is blank, well, how am I going to accomplish this? So how we'll do this, you can unmute if you want, and I'll type on my screen. Or the other way is you can put it in the chat, but it needs to be to everyone, okay? So don't just send me the direct message. Make sure that you select where it says Mr. MITZEL privately. Make sure you click on everyone, okay? and we'll read them out. I'll put them on my screen just like you. What are some ways? Remember, there's no bad answers here. There's no wrong answers, as long as it's serious attempt to sort of generate an idea for the prompt. When we say the world around you or the world, it might be your immediate community. It might be like community as in the people you're in contact with. It could be the city that you live in. What's one change that needs to happen in our city? You might think bigger, you might think nationally or statewide. What's one way that the state of Virginia or the Tidewater region or Hampton Roads might improve? Oh, good. Okay. I like that idea very much. Or maybe you're going to think nationally. What's one area in our nation that we need to fix? And then how, and think about it, it should be something that you could affect change for. So let's put your idea just into maybe a different, slightly different term. So we want to say like one change I would make would be um, to, oops, let's make a dash so we have a bullet point. There we go. So all I did was I just elaborated a little bit. Excellent idea. You generated a fantastic idea. Clean up or improve the environment. We're talking about pollution or litter. Giving to charity. Okay, so giving to charity is really how am I going to do it? Helping others who need help. How about one change is getting people access to assistance, right? Or getting access, getting people access to opportunities. And I'll put financial or jobs or education. Other ideas, go ahead, put them in the chat. I love what you're putting in there. It's really good. Now, Deja, if you were going to use that, I think, which you are more than welcome to, down here, how am I going to do it? Maybe I would put that give to charity, volunteer at, and then you can list a place. Good, good, good. I'll share one from the previous class. Reduce violence was shared from some of the other students in my previous class. Reduce violence. What are some other changes to, the community and people that you interact with on a daily basis or live near, or a problem in the city that you would like to see changed, or a problem regionally or statewide or nationally, or I never said it, but globally too? All right, let's get some more idea. Oh, good. Deja, your idea is actually really sparking a lot more too. Yeah, when you say like giving food to the homeless, what you're actually doing there is reducing poverty or addressing poverty. My keyboard doesn't like the way I spell things today. All right, addressing poverty. That's another way. How about this one? And I saw this on something. I don't want to put their put all their information out there, give all their answers away, but something that your student here has typed in has to do with equity, although they don't know they didn't use the word equity. Establish equity norms, right? That's going to be like making sure everyone has the same adequate access to like voting and that their voice is being heard. It could also be tied into this other thing like access to jobs and access to education. Good, good. Oh, okay. So actually down here, you're coming up with all kinds of things. Okay, so the addressing poverty one. All right. We can put in a couple of points about that. You say, food to the homeless. You also said giving away old clothes, so donating old clothes. I think it was mentioned earlier, volunteering your time. Okay, I love it. Oh, someone else set up here about eliminating, you said picking up stray animals. Maybe it's animal suffering. Is that what you're saying? All right, good. Well, I'm going to stop us there. So as of right now, you should have your prompt has been unpacked right here. I'm supposed to explain. You have a brainstorm with a bunch of ways that you could change. And remember, you're only going to pick one. And then you even got to start elaborating just a little bit in your brainstorm on ways to address poverty. Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow we're going to come back together. We'll continue to work on this. You'll have a chance to, hopefully have a chance to collaborate with folks, with your colleagues, your fellow students. Great work. Great job with No Red Ink. I am looking forward to tomorrow being Friday. And I will dismiss you now. Feel free to stay behind if you have any questions, or send me a message if you do need help with anything, or if you'd like a little bit of help on the No Red Ink, I'm certainly available to do that. It is 1:45. You need to get on to your next class. I will talk to you later. Bye now. Have a great afternoon.